by Riverside.
Welcome to Dance Talk with Joanne Carey, where the dance world connects, the conversations inspire, and where we are keeping them real. I'm your host, Joanne Carey, and today I'm joined with Duke Dang. He's the Executive Director of Works and Process, and I have to say, I am a process gal. I love the process. I love the behind the scenes. I love the works and process. I love to see how artists come with what they're doing and bring it to the forefront. So I'm going to really love this conversation, and I'm happy to be bringing it to you, my listeners. So welcome, Duke, to Dance Talk.
Joanne, thank you so much for having me. You know, we often say that at Works and Process, we believe that the magic is in the process, and we're letting you in on the secret.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to dive into that. But before we dive into all of that, I'd love to give my listeners a little bit of a background about yourself, how you got into this kind of work, what your journey has been in this business, and just let us know a little bit about you, if you would.
Yeah, so I should just from the top say I never ever trained as a dancer, though oftentimes I am that person when the music starts. I am like out on the dance floor, dancing to my own beat, usually off the beat, but feeling it. And everybody around me, their inhibition's kind of lower. I am a trained arts administrator. I did my grad work at NYU in performing arts administration. And I've always seen it as my role as an arts administrator to really fortify artists, make it possible for them to do what they do best. And I'll do what I do best, which is being an arts administrator and doing all the things that artists oftentimes don't want to do because they'd rather be immersed in their creative process. But before that, I was born in a refugee camp. I immigrated to America as a young child. I grew up in Southern California in a Vietnamese community called Little Saigon. It's the largest population of Vietnamese people outside of America. My parents, really typical immigrant parents, encouraged me to study medicine or engineering, something very, very practical. But I've had a performing arts center, the Orange County Performing Arts Center, which is now known as the Segerstrom Center for the Arts, where as an elementary student, we had field trips, and I would see these magical dance performances. English was a second language for me, but I just resonated with dance because it is a universal language that everybody can relate with. And from there, I went to Boston University, studied art history, had many internships, the Glimmerglass Festival. I worked with the J. Paul Getty Museum in their performing arts program. And then I landed an internship at Works and Process, which partners with the Guggenheim Museum. That was the summer between my junior and senior year. And the world was just telling me that there is this magical intersection between the performing arts and the visual arts. And so I started as a paid college intern at Works and Process, and it's 22 years later, and I'm still here.
That's great. What a great story and an inspiring story. I just want to go back a little bit, and God bless your parents. I tell you, when I hear stories like this, and I just want to give them a shout out for doing that. For really bringing you here, and I'm sure I can't even imagine what that was like for them and for you. But I just think I love those stories of people who overcome those obstacles and just pursue a better life. And you are clearly doing that. And I just want to recognize them for doing that. So I thank them for all they did.
They are the most courageous people I know. Growing up as a little kid, you hear these stories that your parents tell you and they become normalized. And then as an adult, you're like,
wow,
you did what? That is so courageous. That is so bold. I would never ever do what you did,
Yeah,
as both people,
yeah,
and sacrificing your lives to seek out an opportunity that doesn't exist where you are.
yeah. And then when you were growing up in California, and then you were exposed to the arts, and you said at that time, did you speak English or you were learning English at that time?
I was learning English,
Yeah, and
and it was just
no, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, I was learning English, and the elementary school was 4 miles away from the Segerstrom Center for the
Mhm.
Arts, the Orange County Performing Arts Center,
Yeah,
as I called it then. And it's really shocking because you go to Orange County now, and it's a very, very developed metropolis. But I remember back then, the center was surrounded by farmland,
wow.
and now it's multiple halls and theaters, but growing up, I was fortunate to see the New York City Ballet and
Oh,
American Ballet Theater,
mhm.
is always
Always
continues to
there.
be at the
Yes.
Segerstrom Center. There's
Mhm.
even a school
Yeah,
at the Segerstrom Center. And some of the world's top companies came through the
yeah,
Segerstrom Center.
yeah,
And that formed the basis of my foundation of
yeah.
the performing arts.
Yeah, and I also like to point out for the listeners too. I mean, and this is what I feel, and I've had this conversation so often with guests and just my own colleagues in the field that what arts does for a child, what art does for people, and what art does to an underrepresented population, children, adults, people with disabilities, special needs. It can be that thing that brings you out, that brings you to the next level. That oftentimes is that saving grace, and that gives you a life.
It's absolutely true. I mean, it was twice for me that I had this experience at the Orange County Performing Arts Center. First, it was through dance when
Mhm.
I wasn't fluent in English as an elementary student. And then in high school, being closeted, to be able to see the first Broadway national tour of Rent
Mm,
and to
mhm,
see a GLBT story on stage.
mhm.
This was before Will and Grace.
I
And
loved
I
Will and Grace, by
thought,
the way.
yeah, but I'm dating myself. But, I was coming of age before Will and Grace,
Mhm.
and there weren't these stories on
Yeah,
TV, but Rent was touring, and I just thought, I'm not alone. I am not alone.
yeah, yeah, and you're not, which is just good. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so let's talk about you went to school on the East Coast. So is that what brought you from California to the East Coast and then eventually settling in New York City because of school? And was it what made you want to go into arts administration? Let me ask you that because your undergrad, it was your master's that was in arts administration, correct? What was your undergrad in?
I studied art history.
Art history. Okay.
Um, I initially started in art in education. That was my
Mm-hmm.
major because my high school job was at the Discovery Science Center, where I did scientific demonstrations.
Mm-hmm.
Cow eyeball dissection, liquid nitrogen demonstrations. I did them all,
Oh my gosh.
and I really loved it. And I thought, I want to be an educator. But I landed in Boston and took an art history 101 class. And I said, I really, really love this.
Mhm.
And I was able to go to the Museum of Fine Arts and the Gardner. And I thought, I'm going to study art history. And that really took me down the path of applying for internships to have experience. I'm a huge advocate for internships,
Mhm.
particularly paid internships.
Yes. Mhm.
It was essential. It was the only way that I could do anything coming from a very, very poor family, the
Mhm.
paid internship.
Yeah.
And fortunately, fast forward 20 plus years, we are now in a world where, people understand that internships need to
Yes.
be paid. But back then, I was only applying for paid internships. And my first paid internship was with the Glimmer Glass Festival. That was after my freshman year.
Mhm.
And I lived in Cooperstown in a opera festival environment in artistic administration, learning about artist schedules and rehearsal schedules and transportation and making sure that they're fed and making sure that they go to their fittings and they go to their rehearsals and they make it to their performances so that the show can go on. And having that level of detail, that behind the scenes, that understanding of the process, you realize, wait, these performances, the world that we're in, we're trained to make performances look flawless,
Yes.
as though it just magically happens. But there's no such thing as magic. It is the byproduct of a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of coordinating that makes it happen. And of course, a lot of training and a lot of passion. And I realized there's a role for me in the arts that isn't about performing. It's being an administrator.
Yes.
And so I applied for another internship the following summer. Again, a paid internship at the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They saw that I had worked at Glimmerglass, and they said, we have just the position for you, which is the performing arts program at the J. Paul Getty Museum. And then the following summer, I applied for more internships. I applied to the Guggenheim, and they placed me with Works and Process.
I see.
Which is their performing arts partner, because they had already seen my experience. So this is why I'm an advocate for the education. Very important.
Yes.
But your experience also is essential.
Yes. And you're willing, I listening to you, your willingness to go where you needed to go. You were seeking out, from my point of view, you were seeking out where you needed to go. You were willing to move around. Not everybody's willing to move around like that. And I think that's commendable, because it's important to do that. I've been to the Getty Museum, which is a lovely museum. So I love museums too. And I just want to, because we are on video, those listening, if you are watching the video, you see this beautiful piece of artwork behind Duke that I'm fascinated by. If you're listening and you have an opportunity to switch over to a video or click on the YouTube channel, check out what's hanging behind him. Can you just speak, just for my own, indulge me a little bit, what's hanging behind you? Because it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's a painting, an abstract painting. I don't even know the name of the artist. I just love it. It brings together reds and blues and greens and yellows, but very, very abstract, expressionist in style. And I love it because there are days that I'm drawn to different colors and different layers. And unfortunately, with abstract art, it doesn't translate very well to video or photography. You really have to be up close in person to see the layers and the textures. And I would say that's the same case with the live performing arts. The ideal way to experience it is in person, and even better, have the chance to learn about how it's created and to be able to go behind the scenes and not just to see the work, but also get to meet the artists that are creating it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to say that the painting behind you has a lot, to me, I'm struck by the movement in it. I love all the color, but there's so much and that's on video. I could imagine in person. But you're talking about the process, which I love. I said that at the beginning. And I had recently done a lecture demonstration. I moderated a lecture demonstration, and we were able, for a dance company, and we were able to discuss the process and do that, which was so fascinating for me as a moderator, for the audience, for everybody involved. I think it brings a whole understanding and a depth into what you're about to see or what you're going to experience from any piece of artwork, whether it's music, poetry, dance, any kind of art. Can you talk about Works and Process itself? Can you talk about the organization itself and tell the listeners about the organization?
So the short version, it's like show and tell for the performing arts. You start kindergarten or preschool and your teacher says, bring in something and talk about it, share it, pass it around. That's what we do for the performing arts. So when you come to a works in process program, you have the creators there. They're in a moderated discussion, letting you know what their intention is for the work that you're about to see. Oftentimes, the work is being created. Actually, oftentimes, they're in the rehearsal studio in the morning or afternoon, and then they come to works in process, and they're sharing what they've created that day because the work hasn't premiered yet. So you get to see it in process. Oftentimes, the creators are on stage coaching the dancers and saying, actually, can you try it this way? Or can you look a little bit higher? Or can you, just instead of performing it at 10, why don't you perform it at 4 and see how it looks? And they'll turn around and they'll look at the audience and they'll say, what do you prefer? It's a little bit of a laboratory.
That's nice.
And so I go back to the magic is in the process. And that's what we're letting you in on.
Yeah.
And if you understand that process, you're going to appreciate it. You're going to understand it. You're going to have such greater ownership and engagement with it.
Yeah.
Because you know how it's been created. You understand the work, time, labor, effort that's been put into it. And so that is what we do at Works in Process. We really allow the audience into the studio, into the mind, into the intention. And then afterwards, we have a post-performance reception so that you can continue the conversation that's been started. Whether that conversation is with somebody that's there that you've never met before, or with a friend that you've come with, or the artists are there so that you can ask them a question.
That's nice.
And this is about creating community. That's really what it boils down to. And the founder of Works in Process, my mentor, her name is Mary Sharp Bronson. She founded Works in Process in 1984. The story goes that the Guggenheim Museum, which is our main partner, approached Mrs. Cronson and said, your family has been so involved in the performing arts. Your brother is the chair of Juilliard. You're on the board of New York City Ballet and New York City Opera. Your mother is the board chair of Martha Graham. You love the performing arts. Will you underwrite a performing arts series at the Guggenheim? Mrs. Cronson said, well, I'm not going to write a check to the Guggenheim because if I do, you might spend it on paper clips and electricity. I want to make sure that artists are paid.
Wow.
Again, Mrs. Cronson wanted to make sure that artists are paid. Then she said, we're in New York City. We don't need another performing arts series. We need to do something different. And I'm going to recognize my privilege as somebody who grew up in an incredibly affluent family that was very engaged in the performing arts. And as patrons, they were always invited to go into the studio to see what's being created. They were always invited to meet the artists, meet the creators. And she said, it's not fair that I get to experience this and others don't. And so she said, I'm going to recreate this experience and make it possible for everybody to experience it.
Wow.
And that's why Works in Process is what it is.
Wow.
It's a program that allows the public to go behind the scenes and see how the work's created. So that's how Works in Process was founded. And I started 22 years ago now as a paid intern. Unfortunately, Mrs. Cronson is no longer with us, but we continue to champion her vision and grow her vision. So we've gone from sharing the creative process to now resourcing the creative process. And what that looks
I was
like
going to ask to
is,
explain that. Yeah.
yeah. So an analogy that I often use is, why do we understand farm to table, but we don't understand studio to stage?
Okay.
So as works in process, we are an organization that has no brick and mortar. We have no buildings, no studios, but we do have the resources to support artists. So we partner with institutions, organizations that have those brick and mortar. And that's why we have 15 residency partners in 4 states.
Wow.
Where when we place these artists in these residency centers, they have 24/7 studio space. We pay them, each artist, a fee of $1,050 per artist per week.
Wow.
We make sure that they have transportation to and from these residencies. And together with a group of collaborators, they're able to explore and create in an uninterrupted way.
So important.
Because
uninterrupted. So important.
Uninterrupted, because being a creator, creativity is not a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It could be 10 p.m. and you have an idea and you want to try it out. And that's what we try to facilitate with Works in Process Launchpad residencies. And that is how we support artists from studio to stage. And when we commit to an artist or a project, it is multiple cycles of these fully funded residencies across a network of 15 partners. And we have 15 partners because we try to match these artists to the right partner.
Right, sure. Good
based
fit.
on where they are in their creative process and also what facilities they need. If we're working with tap dancers, we're not going to place them with a residency partner that only has Marley Studios.
Yeah.
And if we're working with ballet, we're not going to put them in a studio with just a wood floor. Or if we're far enough along in a project, we want to be able to place them in a theater where we can support a tech residency, where we can add lighting and sound.
Wow.
And so it's really about made to measure responses. And that's why for us, building a building wouldn't make sense when we can actually place these artists
like
into a
outsource
place that
almost.
suits them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
so we have partnerships with 15 residency centers. And then here in New York City, we partner mostly with the Guggenheim Museum. There's a stunningly beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright designed theater at the Guggenheim Museum. It's 273 seats. That's our main presenting venue in New York City. We also partner with the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts.
Nice.
In the summertime, we partner with Summer Stage, which it provides free outdoor performances in New York City parks. We also partner with Manhattan West Plaza. We also partner with National Sawdust, Lincoln Center. And this is because the conversation we have is, what do you as an artist need right now? What's going to highlight your work in the most optimal way?
Wow. What a gift. What a gift. And what amazing intuition for what was her name again? I'm sorry. The woman who started this, Mrs. Cronson. What foresight she had. And what dedication and commitment she had to artists and art, and I mean really, and so generous. Her generosity, not only her resources, but her vision, really.
Yep.
That's amazing. And what a gift. It really, I did not know all this. I mean, although you again, I know of all those things you talked about, all those festivals and things going on, but I did not know you were one of the partners of all those. So that's just amazing. And the resources that you provide for artists. What's the process like for an artist? Like, how is it jury? What is that like when an artist wants to become part of this, or have their work presented, or not present, but be part of the process?
Yeah. So we still continue to do what Mrs. Bronson did, which is partner with some of the world's largest organizations: the Metropolitan Opera, New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater, Miami City Ballet. They're all coming to Work in Process on a regular basis. And in that case, the artistic director has already commissioned work, and we just highlight the new work that's being
I see.
created.
Okay.
Then we have what I described to you, where we support artists in their creative process from studio to stage. And we realize that the main venue that we partner with in New York City is the Guggenheim Museum. And what's so unique about the Guggenheim Museum is it's a circular building.
No.
Most buildings are square or rectangle. The Guggenheim is a circular building. And we realize that there are so many performing art traditions that come from the circle. And we're really trying to support those performing art traditions because we've inherited a performing arts ecosystem that prioritizes the proscenium. That's why theaters are built. The majority of times, if you go to a performance, you're seated in a seat and you're watching a stage. It's a proscenium experience. And we said there's so many performing art traditions that come from the circle. Whether it's a line dance or a folk dance or a square dance or a cipher, which is prevalent in hip hop culture, street dance, club dance. Even when you go to a wedding or a birthday party,
you're gathered around.
The music starts. What happens? People get into a circle, right? And they dance. Even in New Orleans, for a second line for a funeral, you dance. And we've forgotten that. And so we're really trying to resource those performing art traditions that come from the circle because our main partner is a circular building.
I love that. I love the attention to detail. I just have to point that out, that detail. Go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And also, we feel that at a moment where the world is increasingly isolated, where there are comfortable couches and 90-inch TVs, where you can sit and watch something that's streaming at high definition, what is the magic of live in-person dance? It's the ability to participate. It's the ability to meet somebody. And that's what social dance facilitates. You can watch, streaming of a Swan Lake performance on TV, and it'll be stunning. But you're never, ever going to be able to partner dance with somebody. Right? You're never going to be like, oh, I'm going to jump into the circle and dance in my living room all by myself. So we're really thinking about how these dance traditions can help us come together and build community. And also at a time where, politics can be so divisive and words mean different things to different people. The magic of dance to transcend all of this. That's the superpower of dance. Just as I experienced as a person that grew up with English as a second language and not understanding a play, but being able to see a dance performance and having it resonate.
Which is so beautiful. That's what I love about dance too, and so often, I taught for many years, I performed for many years, and as a performer, what dance felt like inside of me, and to let that come out of me and emote out of me, and also teaching, seeing students who were struggling or shy, who wanted to hang in the back, and you just knew they had a lot in them to say. They had a lot to say, and they said it through dance. And dance, dance is so incredible on so many levels for so many reasons. It's really a very powerful tool, and a healing tool. It really is.
And this is where I will be critical, and actually most dance teachers will say this as well, and choreographers will say this. Don't learn the count, right? It's like, feel it. It's not about the 5, 6, 7, 8. That's just the start. You really want to embody it and feel it. And when you can feel it, that's when the magic happens. But But when you see somebody dancing and they're like, you're just like, oh no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. There's those levels, those levels. And when you are seeing an artist and they're embodying it, you're so moved. You're so touched. And a place that it brings you to another place. I think it becomes you transcend that and you enter a space. I was talking to somebody on the podcast once and they had a good point that stuck with me. That's why I'm repeating it again. They talked about the point of entry in a performance for somebody, and you enter a theater, everybody comes from all different places. Even the moment before, what they were coming from. Was it work? Was it dinner? Was it family life? Was it this? Was it that? And you all are there in this one place. And there is something in that performance, something in that is the moment of entry for every single solitary person sitting in that audience. Whether it's the minute the conductor raises his baton, whether it's the first sound on the violin, whether it's the entrance of the dancer, so many things. That's the moment of entry, and that's always stayed with me. And I become more aware of that when I go to a performance now. Like, what is my moment of entry and why? Which I think is so powerful. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, and this is why we're so excited about what's coming up very, very
Yes, yes.
soon. We're opening our Works in Process season on January 9th. We have a 5-day festival called the Underground Uptown Dance Festival. It's happening at the Guggenheim Museum, and we're celebrating street, social, club dance traditions that come from the circle. The idea is we're going to put them on the stage of the museum, but also we're going to have a rotunda dance party so that people can spectate and participate and co-create and embody the work. And so we have 15 different projects. 14 of them have been supported with fully funded Works in Process Launchpad residencies. So I tell that story of studio to stage, kind of like farm to table.
Yeah.
We're there supporting these artists. So we have, in this mix, we open with Sekou McMiller, who is channeling Afro-Latin salsa dance. We have KR3Ts, which stands for Keep Rising to the Top, with Violeta Galagarza, who has been at this for 35 years in Spanish Harlem, a hip-hop legend. We have a salsa dance party in the Rotunda.
Oh, fun.
Because we want audiences to feel it, embody it. Then the next day, we are supporting It's Showtime NYC, which is made up of dancers that have a history of performing on the subways.
Oh, wow.
And we're providing them with the resources and the platform to be seen on stage.
Wow.
We're also working with a Vogue ballroom legend named Courtney Balenciaga Washington. Courtney is mother of the House of Balenciaga. She also founded the Kiki House of Juicy Couture, and she has a dance company called the Masters at Work Dance Family. So they'll be on our stage. They're in a residency right now. And then we close that program with the Ladies of Hip Hop doing an all styles battle.
Wow.
In the Rotunda of the Guggenheim, where the battle culture is very prevalent in street dance and social dance. And actually, we're just, even the Paris Olympics had breaking. And, I think I should mention that, for some reason, dance, there's a taboo around competition or battling. But the reality is you have to audition, right? For a summer intensive, you have to audition for a role. You have to audition to be in a company. So why not celebrate it?
Yeah.
And so we are presenting battles. The
And
following night,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. The acoustics for those, that's fascinating. In the Rotunda there.
Speaking about acoustics, we're super excited because the following night, as we were starting to support street, social, and club dance, we were approached by 5 world champion beatboxers from the Beatbox House. And they said, we've been collaborating with breakers, trumpers, and
Oh
flexors
my gosh.
because we were having a conversation together, and we said, why are we always competing? What happens if we collaborate?
That's the
And
plan.
so we provided the fully funded residencies for these street dancers and beatboxers to come together. And they've created a piece called The Missing Element. And we're going to be presenting that in the rotunda of the Guggenheim. And if you hear these beatboxers in the rotunda of the Guggenheim, it is a sonic,
Wow.
immersive 360 experience that is just phenomenal. And they truly are collaborating with these street dancers. But that's another night. We have hip hop legends, Quickstep and Rockefeller, that are exploring the history of poppin'. And they are performing on a double bill with a tap dance company called Music from the Soul. And what's special about Music from the Soul is there's a band, but the band members also dance, and they're the dancers, but the dancers also play musical instruments. And so their mission is to really make an incredibly seamless experience that you're not even sure if you're seeing music or dance. It's just all the same thing. And then we are very, very supportive of intergenerational work. I mean, that's something that is so innate to dance because you learn dance body to body. I mean, despite digital
Of
TikTok,
course, yes.
the way dance needs to be experienced is passed from one person
Yes.
to another, from generation to generation. So we're really supporting intergenerational work. And so we have one night that is focusing on that in two different ways. The first is exploring the Balanchine diaspora. And so we've been working with Emily Coates, who is a former New York City Ballet dancer who is on faculty at Yale. And she shared with us a story that she discovered that there are archives at the Wadsworth Athenaeum in Hartford, Connecticut. And most people think of Balanchine as New York City, because he founded the New York City Ballet. But here's a fact. The first 11 days that Balanchine spent in America were in Hartford.
Yes, that I knew,
And he was,
actually.
yeah. And he was supposed to be there. And he
Yes.
said, this isn't for me. I'm making a beeline to New York
Yeah.
City. But there are archives from that period. So Emily has spent time at the Wadsworth. And one of our residency partners is the church in Sag Harbor. And that's where Balanchine is buried. So right now, Emily and her collaborators are in residency at the church, steps away from Balanchine's
Look
grave.
at that. Wow.
And so she's exploring where Balanchine lives at this point, 50 years after he's died. Or actually, I should say 40 years after he's died. In bodies, in stories, in archives, and exploring how that has scattered. And so that's an intergenerational work that's exploring ballet and Balanchine in particular. But the other intergenerational work that we are commissioning is by Omari Wiles, who is a legend in the ballroom community. Most recently, he choreographed Cat's the Jellicle Ball. But what many people don't know about Omari is that he descends from West African dance royalty. His mother is Marie Bast Wiles, who trained Ron Brown.
Wow.
And for 36 years, Marie has had a dance school in Brooklyn, training generations of West African dancers and West African drummers. And that's where Omari descended from. And when Omari came out of the closet, he was looking for his chosen family, and that's how he ended up in the ballroom community. But we said, why don't we bring together these two generations? And so that's the other intergenerational work that we'll be highlighting. And then we close that night off with an incredible experience that comes from the New York City clubs called Leo Rhythm, which is founded by Maile Ho. Maile is from France, but she was really looking for the heart of house and hip hop culture. And of course, she landed in New York City. And when she arrived here, she ended up becoming a dancer with Rennie Harris. And then she was dancing with Theo Parrish. And she had a magical moment where she was dancing and she realized that the band members were creating music responding to her dancing. And so she said, wait, what if we bring together musicians that are really, really looking carefully at the dance? And what if we bring in an MC? And so she's created Layer Rhythm, which is a play-based improv jam that explores what happens when we come together and create and intuitively speak this language. And what happens if we start to crowdsource some material from the audience members. So the MC might say, I need everybody to throw out like 4 words for me. And the MC in the moment will start doing a rhyme, using those words, telling a story. So the audience already feels connected because they contributed to this experience. The MC, while the MC is doing this, the dancer is dancing the story that the MC is telling in real time, and the musicians are composing in real time. Then the dancers will say, can you contribute like 4 phrases? And those 4 phrases, it's the dancers' improv that's weaving together these 4 phrases. And this is all happening as the musicians are literally looking at the dancer and creating music responding to the dancer's movement, which is completely counterintuitive because most dancers are like, I'm listening to the music. I'm listening to the music, or I'm anticipating the music.
Unless you're modern trained, unless you're a modern dancer.
Right.
Right? Yes.
Right.
Wow.
So we closed out the 4th night with Layer Rhythm in the Rotunda, and we want everybody to hop into the cypher. And then the last night, we have concert dance. We've commissioned a piece by Lloyd Knight, who is a Martha Graham principal.
Love Lloyd.
It's inspired by the women who have influenced him in his life, Martha Graham and his mother. And he's been collaborating with Jack Ferver and Jeremy Jacob. And then we have ballet collectives, The Night Falls. And then we close out the festival with a whack battle with Princess Lockaroo. So that's the Underground Uptown Dance Festival.
Sounds awesome. I mean, it is so full. It really is. I mean, what an amazing, amazing few days. It sounds like it would be more of months, but this is happening over the course of how many, 9, 10, 11, 12, 30.
5 days.
Wow. I mean,
5 days.
5
We have
days.
3 products every day.
That's amazing. Amazing, amazing. And we'll put all that information in the notes. And you mentioned when we were off camera too, that you have a whole series of things going on through May, I believe is what you said. Do you want to talk about that as well and tell the listeners, so they can experience this more?
Yep. So in addition to that, as we progress through the season, we're going to be celebrating the Miami City Ballet, and there are 2 new commissions coming up. One by Pam Tanowitz, who has a long history with Works in Process. Pam, most people don't know this. At one point, Pam was working in box office at the Guggenheim Museum, and that's how she met the founder of Works in Process. And in the late 90s into the early 2000s, Mrs. Cronson commissioned multiple works from Pam, and we're so proud that she's just gone on to this incredible career. And so when we heard that Miami City Ballet and Lourdes Lopez had commissioned a piece from Pam, we said, we want to show this work in process. And Lourdes said, I'm also commissioning a Carmen from Annabelle Lopez Ochoa. And so Pam and Annabelle will be on the panel discussion, and the audience members will get to see this first look of it while it's still being created.
That's exciting. And that's the Miami City Ballet dancers coming to. That's exciting.
15 Miami City Ballet dancers coming to Works in Process at the Guggenheim on January 25th. And then we like keep on forging ahead. We wanted to highlight dance on Broadway this season.
Exciting.
So we have Buena Vista Social Club, which is choreographed by Patricia Delgado and Justin Peck. That happens the next day, January 26th. And then after that, we are highlighting Smash the Musical, which is being directed by Susan Stroman, Tony Award winner, and Josh Bergas. who won an Emmy for his choreography for Smash. They've turned Smash, the TV show, into a musical. So that'll be at Works in Process on February 3rd. And then we're supporting Andy Blankenbuehler, who, choreographed Hamilton in a Works in Process Launchpad residency with Potash Hill. Andy will be in the residency for 1 week, and he goes straight from residency to Works in Process at the Guggenheim on February 7th to share a first look of this in-process piece called Never Alone. And after that, we're highlighting Jerry Mitchell's new musical, Boop, the musical, the Betty Boop musical. That's on February 10th. And then going back to this idea of social dance again, the Guggenheim Museum has an exhibition exploring the Orpheus painters. And the Orpheus painters in the 1920s in Paris were very inspired by tango. So in the Rotunda of the Guggenheim, we're going to have Ballet Hispanico with Alejandro Severa and Matthew Neenan and Garcia Danielle perform some tango-inspired pieces. And then we'll have New York City Tango Collective doing a tango social dance for everybody.
Fun.
Yep. And we keep on trudging forward. Ballet X is doing a first look of their new commission by Jennifer Archibald on March 23rd. And then we're collaborating with the 92nd Street Y on an Uptown Rhythm Dance Festival. And we really want to, kind of circling back to the conversation that I had about, it's not about 5, 6, 7, 8. It's, I've got rhythm, I got music, and we're trying to start a conversation about what rhythm dance is. And so together, we have 1 week of programming that will span both 92nd Street Y and Works in Process at the Guggenheim. We open that Uptown Rhythm Dance Festival with a swing dance, with a swing band, with Gabby Cook.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to close the festival with an icon. She's 88 years old, Brenda Buffalino, who is going to be creating a new work for us. And
that's amazing.
In between, at the 92nd Street Y, there will be a program that weaves together Max Pollock and the Ladies of Hip Hop and Crybaby Cozy and Harlem Light Feet and Souls of Duende, just really exploring what rhythm dance is. We continue on. We also are going to welcome the New Jersey Ballet, who's now under the artistic directorship of Maria Kurowski. She's doing incredible work. She's commissioned a second piece from Harrison Ball, who is really, really worth keeping an eye on.
Yes.
And then we close out our season by welcoming the Vail Dance Festival. And Damien Wetzel is the artistic director, and he'll be sharing new works that will be at the Vail Dance Festival.
And that's when, that goes till when? When do you
May
close
4th.
your season? So your season starts in a couple days and goes through May 4th.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. That's an amazing lineup. That is incredible and exciting. And everybody needs to go see it. That's so exciting. So, I mean, with all this amazing programming, are you already thinking of next year? What's going to happen next year and who are we getting next year? You know how you always have to be on the next thing that's happening, or you're already lining that. I'm not asking you to divulge it. I'm just saying, is that how it works when you're arranging?
Always. And this is where I'll make the pitch. You should go to www.worksandprocess.org and sign up for our mailing list, our e-blast list, and you'll get all the news when we can share it. There's a lot that we're cooking up. I just can't share it.
But you can come back and share it, which would be exciting.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you too, I don't know if you answered it, if I asked it earlier. So if there was an artist, say, if there's an artist listening and they're like, wow, I want to get involved with this. I want to see if I can have a residency or apply for how does that application process work, or what is that like for them?
So again, you have to go to worksandprocess.org and sign up for the e-blast list. Traditionally, we've always curated the program and it's always by invitation.
I see. Okay.
In 2025, we will be having an open call.
Oh, nice.
And so you'll just have to look for the open call.
Look for the open call. Send it to me too, because I can put it out there. I can,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Wow, what an amazing lineup. It's so exciting. And the Guggenheim, as you're talking about it, I picture it happening in the rotunda and the theater, all that. It's very, very exciting. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would love to share? I know you can let us know the dates again. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes so that everybody can get that information and get tickets. Tickets, are they? Tell us about that.
Yeah, our tickets start at $20. And you can buy them online. Some of our programs are free when we partner with the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. In May, we'll have Cry Baby Cozy and some Light Feet legends there, sharing how Light Feet was created and seeing Light Feet performed. That will be at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. We partner with them because it's very important to archive the work that we do. And so that program will be about archiving Harlem Light Feet.
Wow.
It's a tradition that's barely 20 years old. And, fortunately, the creators are still alive and with us. Yeah. So let's gather these stories while they're still around. So what would I want to share? I think what's really important now more than ever is recognizing that dance is something that we do together, that we embody. Certainly we can perform it, but we want everybody to be dancing together.
Yeah.
Second, live performing arts is iterative. I rarely ever use the word premiere because premiere places too much emphasis on one night. When the truth is, when you're performing it live, it's always different. Yes. It's always iterative. And the way that you perform it at the premiere is different than how you're going to perform it a month or a year later. And we have to celebrate the magic of that. Yeah. We're not TV, we're not film, because once that final cut is a final cut, it is a final cut. It never changes. But live performing arts, it's iterative and it's always in process. And we need to celebrate that now more than ever.
I like that, because we're living and breathing, and so is dance and live performance, living and breathing, and we're celebrating that. I love that. Thank you, Duke, so much. This has just been so educational for me too. I'm very excited. You've got me excited about this festival. Thank you for joining me on Dance Talk. You're welcome back anytime. Anytime you want to talk about your programs going on, please come back and share. And like I said, I will put all the information in the show notes. But I just want to thank you for being a guest on Dance Talk.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is Dance Talk with Joanne Carey. Follow us, like us, and share, share, share. Thank you, everybody.
Powered by Riverside.